So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk about, I've got a bunch of new features that I just wanted to highlight, but the main topic today is our custom macro feature. And I'm just going to talk to you guys about that. And then we'll, as we always do, answer questions and etc. So here we go. You should be able to see my screen. And on the if you're an administrator, okay, so if you're an administrator, and you can have as many administrators as you want, your user, just to go to that point, if you're here's a list of all the users in our tenant, in our firm, and you can see I'm checked off as an administrator. So if I'm an administrator, I can see custom macros here on the left. Okay, and so I'm just going to click on macros. Now, this is where all of our system macros, the ones you're familiar with, that we created, are live, and you can see all of them. We have ones for children, we have ones for spouses and siblings, and those kinds of things. So those are the pre-made ones. But one of the great features is that if there's a typical gift, a residue gift that you're creating again and again, you can create a macro, your own macro, and make it just the way you want it. Now, a couple of things about macros. They can't have a name. They have to, they can't be a person beneficiary. They have to be a class beneficiary, because of course you can't make a general gift for somebody that you don't know. So any macro that we create is a class gift. So that includes spouses, children, grandchildren, etc. Okay, and they're only right now, they're only for residue gifts. Those are the ones that you can create. Okay, so I'm going to ask anybody who's there with me here. Let's set up a macro for somebody here. Let's say a children's trust, for example. Anybody will have a typical children's trust that they use as their sort of regular, quite often. Anybody want to shout out one? You can unmute and feel free, and we'll build it together. Nobody's got one? Okay, I will do one, and you guys can guide me. So I'm going to create my own, I'm going to create a new children's trust macro. Okay, so I'm going to name it, and I'm just going to name it any way I want. But what I usually say is who the beneficiaries are, the type of gift it is. So children trust, and then whatever I want to do. It's 3-stage distribution. Okay, and I can call it whatever I want. Jordy. Okay, and I can describe what it is, and I can put in here. It's a gift. It's a 100% residue, right? To children, separate trusts for to age 40 or something. Okay, I can put in whatever description I want. Then I'm going to actually build the macro. So I'm going to add a gift to this macro. So I'm going to form the macro itself by creating a gift. So I add gift, and I can pick the class of people that I want, that are going to be the beneficiaries of this gift. So I can pick, I'm going to pick children. Okay, that's going to be, it's a gift to the class of children. It's a trust is the one I'm building, but I could build an absolute gift. I'm going to do the distribution in parts or percentages. It doesn't really matter, because I'm going to be doing, it's 100% gift of the residue for this example. This is your typical separate trust for each beneficiary, because I could build a pool trust, but I'm not building that right now. So I'm going to build the duration. It's going to be age, what did I say, age 40? Let's do that. And now I'm going to build in mandatory payments, and I'm going to do staged lump sums. And this typical one that I'm building right now that I want to be able to reuse is a 3-stage distribution. So I'm going to do the first at a percentage. So it's going to be 33.3, a third at 30. Then I'm going to say a third at 35. So that's a half of the balance, 50, right? And then the balance at 40. So it's a 3-stage distribution. And my gift over is going to be, for example, I can build it. Let's just do issue. So it's going to go to their issue if they're not alive. Otherwise, it'll go to the other children or their issue. Okay. And so I've just created this macro, which looks right to me. And I can just say save. And now it's available right here. Okay. And I can go in and I can edit it if I want. You just click here and you can remove, edit, clone. I can create another one based on that one and then just rename it because it's got something different. And I can create as many of those macros as I want. And then when I go to any particular client, let's go to this person, and I want to use my macro. So I probably want to use it where I have descendants because it's for children. Let me just clear this out. So pretend I was starting from scratch here for John Smith. If I clicked run macro, of course, it would have all of the macros that eState provides. And then we would also have that Geordie one right here, the 3-stage distribution. If I click on that one, and then it's going to create that exact gift that I did, age 40, 3 distributions, etc. And so you can have your own, if there's a macro, if there's a gift that you use regularly, set it up in the macros, add it, and then you have it available. So on what plans is this available? That's a good question. Michaela, can you find that out? I think it's definitely on the growing plan and professional. I don't know if it's available on the flex plan. We'll find that out for you. So that's what you can do. And you can, like I said, create as many different macros as you want, and just use them. And at some point, we're going to be able to create our own e-plans so that it'll do all the, you could basically paste create a bunch of macros all together. But for now, this is what we've got. And so, you could do them if you very typically use, in the no descendants scenario, if you typically use, a third to, or half to siblings, half to spouses, siblings, we have that already, but you might have a different one. And so you can create as many of you want, and you can create partial ones, either by percentages or parts, and then stitch them together. It's probably a good idea to do parts because then they're more flexible. It'll automatically, if you had added 3 different ones that each have one part, then now it's a third, a third, a third, right? So you can do that. I hope that, that made sense. But so you can do that with your, residue macros. Any questions about that? So again, you could use parts, and if it's the only part that's included in this macro, then it's going to be 100%. It's the same as 100% percentage. So probably makes sense if you're doing new custom ones that you use parts, and then you can stitch them together. So if you had one part for siblings, one part for spouses, siblings, and you ran 2 separate macros, then it's going to have one part for spouses, siblings, one part for siblings, and then it's basically 50-50. So that's the idea. So any questions about that? And again, if you're an administrator, you can add macros, and they're available to everyone if you've created it as an administrator.
How do you see the wording of the macros? Like, for instance, is there like a power to encroach on the capital?
So you just build it the way you want to build it. It's like any other gift that you would have created. It's exactly the same. So you can, if you want to see what one looks like, you could try creating it in an actual gift. So if you wanted to see that, that's a good point, because it doesn't know the language. It could depend on other, like how many segments were stitched together and things like that. So if you wanted to see what the wording looked like, what I would do is I'd try it out here, like create whatever gift you think you're going to make as a macro. Okay. And then as you're creating that, you can run your viewer, right, and see what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to do this. And then as I'm building this out, let's see about the encroachment. Right now, we built it with unlimited, but what happens if we did limited encroachment? maintaining a minimum capital balance or something like that. If I wanted to see what that would look like before I created the macro itself, I could just run the preview and see, yeah, okay, that's what I want. Okay, and now I'm going to do that, save that as a, or not save it, but create a macro, a custom macro with that. Does that make sense?
So in your situation, you used a certain client and then you went to the macro.
Right. So here I
feature?
want to test what I would get, right? So I created the gift that I'm thinking I want to create a macro that's, for children in trust. Duration is, age 30, or whatever it might be. This is the macro. And you said you wanted to see what the language would look like. Well, you'd have to run it for a sample client and see what the language looked like and say, okay, yeah, this is what I'd want, and now recreate that as a macro.
Yeah. So are you creating the macro first and under the template macro, and then
Good, and then add it to a client and see what comes up, and then go back and change it if it's not right. That's the other way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, if I ran this macro, which was well, let me just clear this. Hang on one sec. So let's say we did that and you weren't sure you liked the wording yet. Okay. So what I would do is I'd create the macro, I'd run it in some test client, for example, and then I'd execute it and check it out to see what it looks like. You could do it in the viewer,
Okay.
or you could
Yeah.
download it. And then, oh no, this isn't right. Okay. So then you go back to the macro and edit it, change it so you did have it right.
So Jordy, I've got a unique situation. I don't know whether I'd create a macro for this or not, but the client has 3 children. They're in their 35, 33, and 28.
Yes.
And she wants to set up a trust and give the money to each child at age 45 for one, and age 55 for the other, and age 55 for the other. So she doesn't want the kids to get any money until they reach that certain age, like 45 for one, and then 55 for the other.
Yep.
And then 55. I didn't get instructions whether she wants like encroachment on that.
Yeah. That would not be a time to use macros. So I'm going to take you through that example as a sample, but the time you use macros is you're using this all the time. Yeah. Your regular standard procedure is everything at 21. Okay.
Yeah.
That's when you create a macro. A macro is used when you're going to use it, or someone in your firm is going to, use it more than once, kind of thing.
Exactly. This is a one-off situation, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is a one-off situation, and I'll just show you how to do that. But I'll show you at the end of this session, because I want to show a few other things.
Okay, no problem.
Is that okay? But I'll show you how to do that. Yeah. So again, macros are for that typical gift that you're using all the time, regularly. And of course, once you create a macro and you use it, you can always edit it in the for that particular client. So if I used a macro here, because it's the closest one to what I want to, what the client wants, for example, I can always then, once I've done that one, I think it was this one, I can run it, and then I can go in and change whatever I want. It just creates the outline, and then I could go in here and say, oh, for this one client, they actually wanted it at age, 31. Okay, no problem, right? But it gives you a place to start. Okay. Any other question on that? And then I'll show you a few other things. So, great. We can come back to this if anybody does have questions. So, a few other features that I wanted to tell you guys about, one of which you may have seen already, but I'm not sure. So, we now have, as you know, we have non-user witnesses. You went through that last week. We now have a system that allows users, lawyers, to be able to see all the firm's clients, even if they're not an administrator. Okay. So let's pretend here's my firm and I have a bunch of lawyers, including Evan. Evan, I don't want to give him access to the billing and to the, set up templates and things like that. I just want him to be able to use the software. And so when I open him up, I can make him an administrator, which would mean that he had access to all the things on the left that you see right now: clients, documents, people, macros. He could add users. No, I don't want that. but I do want him to be able to see all of the firm's clients, be able to access. So this is for, you might have clerks who are working for you. You don't want them to have access to the billing or anything else, but you do want them to be able to see any client. Then you just click on access all clients and save. And now if Evan went back in, he could now see all the clients, not just the ones that he is the contributor for. Okay, so this is a feature that allows him to see a user to be able to see all the firm's clients. If neither of those was checked off, they're not an administrator and they're not accessing all clients. The only clients that Evan could see is a client where he's a primary or secondary contributor. Let me show you where that is. Down here, whenever you set up a client, you can set up who the contributors are. That's who's going to be able to work on the file. Typically, the primary is the lawyer and the secondary might be the clerk. As long as you're one or the other, you can see it on your list of clients. But if you're neither of those and you haven't been given access to view all clients, you won't see those clients on your list of clients. Okay. Does that make sense? Because we had situations where, especially, if you had a clerk, you wanted the clerk to be able to see everybody's files because they might end up working on it, even though they're not a primary or secondary contributor, but you didn't want them access to the administrator's functions. So, and you get that, you click on people, users, and then edit a particular user to change their access. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, good. View all clients, custom. Okay, I want to show you about another feature. So we've done a bit of a stopgap measure. We're creating basically fully customized templates where you can not only include and exclude paragraphs, but you can move them around and put in your own paragraph that doesn't exist for anybody but you and things like that. And so that is a massive job. And so we're working through that slowly. But until then, we recognize that people, especially for the powers of attorney, wanted the option to put in a paragraph, their own paragraph, that is in basically every time they generate a power of attorney, they want that paragraph in there. And so what we did as a stopgap measure is in the contents tab. So when you open your power of attorney for property, go to contents and add content down here, because these are all the clauses that are in mine right now. If I go add content, there's a thing that says custom paragraph. Okay. If I click on that, I can type in, you can put in whatever you want. You can have a heading if you want, and you can put in whatever, paste in whatever you want. That's going to go at the end of the document before the last paragraph. Okay. So right now it can't be moved around. It will be. That's coming, but in case there's a paragraph that you want to see in every one of your powers of attorney for property, you can put that in and just add it as a custom paragraph. Is that any questions about that? And so that's available in two places: power of attorney, personal care, and the one for property. They're both custom paragraphs. If you don't see it, okay. So for example, you're looking at your list of assets. You're like, what was Jordy talking about? Go to add content. Because that means there are items, there are what we call components or paragraphs that are not included in your default document that you might want. So then you go add content, and here are the ones that you want to include. So it's custom paragraph, you go done, and then you go and edit it and put in whatever you want to say. Okay. Make sense? Hope. That's another feature that's now there. And I believe it's only in the growing and professional plans. And the last thing that I want to show you is the revocation clause. So now, as you know, we continue to add options that you can tweak and add your own paragraphs, etc. So now we've added revocation. So our typical default revocation clause is this one. You might prefer a simplified one, or you might want to put in your own custom one. And then it'll appear in every one of your documents. So like all of the paragraphs that we're building, you're going to see this tomorrow in trustee replacement paragraphs. You're going to see that for basically every component. You're going to be able to customize, pick different options, etc. So, of course, we had that for admin provisions, definitions. Now we have it for revocation, and we continue to make it more and more customizable, so it's more comfortable for you. And at the end of the day, so that is all that I had as far as new features go. Welcome any questions. I think Tim, you had a question, right? About that. We had different stage distributions for different clients, and I'll show, or children. I'll show you how to do that while I'm waiting for anyone to ask me any questions. Anybody having any issues with that they wanted to go over, things that they need help with? Hopefully you're using the viewer and getting a sense of that, so you can see what's going to be generated as you sort of do things. Right, that's what we've got. So let me, while we're waiting for any questions, I'm going to show Tim how you would do what you're talking about. So I'm in the descendants only. I've got this situation where I don't want every child to get the same. I don't have a common provision for all the children. So what I'm going to do is add a gift. And I'm going to pick each child, and I'm going to say, okay, for Bart, I'm going to set up a trust, but his is to age
40, 45, let's say.
45, okay, no problem. And whatever the terms are for him, are there mandatory payments?
Don't think so.
Okay, so it'll be fully discretionary, and then if he's not alive, to his descendants, let's say, okay?
Yeah, she wanted to gift over to the other kids.
Yeah, okay, not to his kids if she...
Yeah, she said gift over to the other kids, but I don't know if she was thinking about like...
I think she probably wasn't thinking about...
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'd create one for Bart. So let me just go down to this paragraph and I'll show you where. So, so this is the benefit of sort of seeing it live. So we're down here. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh that. So that was the one for Bart. Now, what I'm going to do is do it in parts. So because I want one part to go to Bart. Then the second part I want to go to Lisa. Okay. That's a different trust, right? You've got,
Yeah.
What do you have for that one?
55, sorry.
55.
It's crazy age. I mean,
Yeah.
like, but that's what you want.
I can't imagine not having encroachment, but okay. Now I'm going to say beneficiaries issue again, just
Makes
okay.
sense.
Okay. Now, let's say there were only two, maybe there's a third one, doesn't matter. You just keep adding them. Here's a situation. So you can see here, this is that trust for Bart, right? Oh, Bart was disabled, so it did it actually put in some provision for that. But that's because I have Bart as a disabled person. Gotcha. But it's going to draft that properly, okay? Assuming your people aren't disabled. But let me just show you something else, because here I think I did it right, okay? Because I said, oh yeah, if Bart's not alive, or at the end of the trust, it goes to Bart's descendants, right? But you'll see, let's just generate this thing. We're going to actually reboot this. It's taking a little bit too long. Should take less than 7 seconds. So, and here's Lisa, right? Here's Lisa's trust of 55, etc. Now, I think I did it right. So I'm just going to check my concerns here. And if I go down here, I see insufficient gift over. For the trust gift and descendants only for Bart, consider including a further gift over in the event that Bart leaves no issue at the end of the trust. So that's a good point. So I've got to go down into my gift overs, and I probably want to leave it to the other segments. That is, I want to go to Lisa if he dies, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm going to do there. And I'm going to do the same for Lisa. If she's not alive, I want it to go to Bart's trust, right? So that's the other segments gift over. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And now when I run this thing, you'll see those warnings are, it's eState satisfied at that point. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Does it matter, Jordy, if one lives in the States, like one child lives in Texas or somewhere.
It'll warn you. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got the US issues, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you have a US person, there's a US issue. That's why the reporting letter will say you have beneficiaries who are non-residents. It'll automatically say that, right? But yeah, if it's not to get too deep into US planning, but if it's a sizable estate, you're going to want to you're going to recommend US estate tax advice, because when that beneficiary dies, if they have more than X million dollars, depending on what the threshold is in the US at that time, then their estate's going to get taxed if you don't do it right. So it's for sure something that I would, because here it's saying that, like, I might have a foreign person, right? So
Yeah.
like, it would highlight that if your client, if you've indicated that somebody's non-Canadian.
Okay.
How are you going to deal with, can we get an option to add carving out my US estate? Well, I don't know if it's not so much that you have a US estate, it's that the beneficiary is a US person and their estate is going to be subject to US estate. It's not so simple to just say carve out US estate. We have to create the ability to limit your wills to different assets. And that we have had on our list, by the way, for a while, but it's complicated and we don't want to put out something that's not good. So we're not doing that yet, but it's for sure on the roadmap. How are you going to deal with winter home located outside the country? I'm going to tell the client they should probably get US advice. Because we can't tell them what's going to happen with that. There's a whole complicated thing about that. And you may want to check out, especially if it's a US person, Chris. Kevin Gluck has spoken at one of our webinars before. You can reach out to Michaela. She can get you that webinar where he talks about dealing with US real estate. So thanks, guys. The warning, by the way, is right here. I think somebody asked, maybe it was James, about what's that warning for non-spousal trust. In this case, I have a non-qualifying spousal trust because it wasn't for the lifetime only. There was another condition on it. And so eState saw that and says, oh, that's not let's just see. Yeah, we had remarriage. So that's a non-qualifying spousal trust. So that's what it saw. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I hope you like the new features. We have new ones coming out this week as well. We continue to do that and build them out. And thank you for your support. Reach out using the support button anytime with any suggestions, anything that doesn't quite make sense to you. Let us know, because if it doesn't make sense to you, then we haven't done it right. So let us know so we can improve it for everybody. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.